Hello, everyone. If you're new to photography or you're just getting started in photography, you may have questions about what it is that you should use for equipment. One thing to do is to go to a place like Lens Rentals, where they offer both camera bodies and lenses for you to rent. Now, this is something I've done several times now. What they allow you to do is try out the item before you decide whether you want to buy it or not. So I had been interested in the Canon R5. I'd used Canon cameras before, and I had some EF lenses. So I rented a Canon R5 as well as some RF glass to go with it so I could get used to both the glass and that camera and see if it was something that I wanted to use, because it was very different from the DSLR that I had been using. I decided that I liked it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is these are kept in very good condition. However, they're usually not for sale at much less than what you could go buy the camera for new. So I have a tendency not to buy from them, but I will rent equipment and try it out. Now, there's certain times of the year that I use certain things. For example, when it gets to the time of the year where we're doing foliage in the Northeast, I'll go grab a lens that allows me to zoom in so I can get shots of the mountains behind me from a distance. And I've tried out a couple of those lenses as well, and I decided to buy one. It was only $600 for the zoom lens that I ended up getting. But again, it allows you to get a feel for the equipment. Now, maybe you can't afford the equipment from them, or maybe you can't afford to buy it new. But one thing you can look for then is, if you like that particular equipment, is there something a little bit less expensive in that line that you'd want to get? So let's say we're looking at Canons and you like the R5, maybe an R6 would meet your requirements and they're a little cheaper. Now, the reason I say to look for things that are a little bit farther down the line is twofold. One is it allows you to invest in glass. It's all RF glass, so even if you get a R6 and you buy a beautiful low focal point lens for it, you're going to be able to use that if you stay in the Canon line on any of the Canon cameras. So if later on you get an R5 or an R3 or perhaps an R1, you'll be able to use that same glass on any of those cameras. But the other reason I say this is, when a new camera comes out, for example, when the R1 hits the market, people will get rid of their R3s and then upgrade it to an R1. The reason they do that is there wasn't an R1 available. That's going to put some good used R3s on the market. Well, people that have R5s might look for either an upgrade to an R3 or get one of those used R3s, which will then put some possible used R5s on the market. So you can see how this cascades through. The R5s came out, the R6s were later, the R3s were after the R5s, and the R1 will be after that. So that means that anything that came after the R5 might end up being something that people upgraded to. So the R3 came out, they might upgrade to the R3. And that's going to put that hardware on the market. Now, again, if somebody's got an R6 and they've been looking to get an R5 and somebody sells their R5 because they've upgraded, that gives you the opportunity to buy good equipment at less than what you would have paid normally for it if you bought it new. But I'm the type of person I want to get the item in my hand and I want to try it out. And I did that with the R5 through Lens Rentals. And what that meant was that I could get a feel for what it would be to use that camera on a day-to-day basis and take pictures with it. Had it for a week. The rentals are not expensive. So you're not going to be looking at that going, I could put this money away and then buy it. Take the money, it takes the risk out of what happens when you buy that item and you perhaps don't like it. This will allow you to do the work up front and get an idea of whether it's going to be right for you. Personally, I've got an R5. I got the grip to it, which allows me to put 2 batteries into it. And I've got some good RF glass to go with it, including a really nice 100-400 zoom lens that's not as low of an f as you would use for, let's say, portraiture, but I wanted it for doing pictures of mountains, pictures of things far away, and you're really not going to care that much for that. Now, if I were a photographer of birds or other wildlife, I might want a better f for that so that I could blur the backgrounds in the shot a little better. This lens is going to give me a good depth of field, but it's still going to have some of the stuff behind. Let's say if I took a picture of a deer or a chickadee in a tree, some of that's still going to be in focus in the background that I would prefer to have blurred, which I could get if it had a 2.8. You're not going to get something that small on those big lenses for the simple fact that it's the lens size divided by. So if it's a 400 millimeter lens, it would be 400 millimeters divided by 2.8. That's the size of the glass that you're going to have, or the opening inside for the light to come through. So that's a really big, really heavy lens. And you will see those. You will see photographers out there taking pictures of animals, and they have these massive lenses on there that look like they might be a pain in the ass to carry around, but they're huge. And that allows them to get those really, really good shots. Now, a way around that, if you're taking pictures of, let's say, a deer, if there aren't any trees or anything in the background, and you've got a long shot up to like a mountain or something farther in the distance, then that's not going to matter as much because there's not going to be anything within that depth of field that's going to be in focus that you're going to worry about because everything's far enough away. I'll do that at the events at Fort Ticonderoga. If I use the 100-400 to really zoom in to get a picture of something, I'm going to want to make sure that I don't care about the background. So if I'm taking pictures of them, let's say when they're showing off the accoutrements of muzzle loading, and they've got the gun in their hand, and I want to zoom in on the gun, if I angle it right, I can catch a very, very distant background. So it makes them stand out because everything in the background's blurred because it's so far away. Or if it's a group that's out performing in the parade grounds and I'm above them, if I shoot down, I'm going to get the ground and the ground's going to be in focus, and I don't really care because they're still the center of it. And there's nothing to really distract the eye because the ground beneath them is dirt. And it's a flat surface. It's a bland surface. So they, in their colorful outfits, will be much easier to pick out. And I don't have to worry about the bokeh as much. So that's one way around it when you're using a lens that has a large depth of field to it. But beyond that, pay attention to what it is that you want to use. And if you have an event coming up or something special that you want to try, rent the glass. Go grab yourself the glass. I've used a large 400, not quite as big as I've seen, but I've used a large 400 millimeter before, and I only needed it for a couple of things, so I just rented it. And it's cheaper to just rent the glass when you need it and then return it and get it again next time you need it. So keep that in mind as you're getting started, or as you're progressing your portfolio, that if there's something that you really want to try, rent it. You don't have to go buy that particular item out just to go try it. You can rent the item that you need and try it out. And if you really like it, like I did with the 100 to 400, I tried a couple of them. I wasn't sure I was going to like this one because, again, as I said, I had a big depth of field, but it's turned out that I loved it. It's a light lens, and it gets me the images that I want to get in the way I want to get them done. So try it out, find out a lens rental place, and see what you can get. And that's what I got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next week.